Hello and welcome to the MCQ lecture series. In today's class, we are going to look at some of the important multiple choice questions with respect to Indian and global economic development paper. So let's get started. The first question is, which of the following denotes the basic characteristics of Indian economy? The basic characteristics of Indian economy, and the underlying options are A, low per capita income or PCI. Second is majority people working in primary sector or agriculture. C, heavy population pressure, and D, all of the above. So here we are looking at the basic characteristics of Indian economy, and option D, all of the above, are some of the basic characteristics of Indian economy. That means in India we witness low per capita income. We also see that majority of people are working in primary sector, and also there is a heavy pressure from population growth. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to the next one. Again a similar sort of question. Which of the following denotes the general characteristics of Indian economy? And the underlying options are A, general poverty, B, agriculture the main occupation, C, underdeveloped natural resources, and D, all of the above. So again the general characteristics of Indian economy are denoted by points A, B and C, that is general poverty, agriculture is the main occupation, and there is underdeveloped natural resources. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. The next question as well talks about the general characteristics of Indian economy, and the question is, the general characteristics of Indian economy are dash, and the underlying options are A, unemployment and disguised unemployment. That means there is unemployment as well as disguised unemployment. Now disguised unemployment means that, for example, there is a farm in which I need only 2 laborers to work on that particular farm, but despite of knowing that there are only 2 workers which are needed on that farm to work for a particular day, there are 4 workers who are working on the farm. So the additional 2 workers who are working on the farm are known as disguised unemployed workers or laborers. So that is there in Indian economy. Second is insufficient capital equipment. Third is a dualistic economy, and last is all of the above. So here again option D, all of the above, is the correct answer with respect to this question, which talks about the general characteristics of Indian economy. So in first 3 questions we have seen 9 important basic characteristics or general characteristics of Indian economy. They are low per capita income, majority of people working in primary sector, heavy population pressure, general poverty, agriculture is the main occupation, underdeveloped natural resources, unemployment and disguised unemployment, insufficient capital equipment, and a dualistic economy. A dualistic economy means on the one hand you have very good developed cities, and on the other hand you have rural areas wherein you have deficiency of a lot of things. So that sort of dualistic economy exists in the Indian economy. So options in all these 3 cases were option D, all of the above, and they were all talking about the characteristics of Indian economy. Let us now move to question number 4. Question number 4 is, dash is defined as the income earned per individual in an area in a specified period of time. Now the income earned per individual, or it is also called as the average income in an area. Now this area can be a country, a region, and things like that, in a specified period of time. Usually we are looking at 1 calendar year or 1 financial year. So what is the topic about when we discuss the income earned per individual in an area in a specified period of time, or time period to be very precise, whether it is the definition of A, per capita income, whether it is the definition of general income, whether it is the definition of C, ordinary income, or D, personal income. So here it is PCI or per capita income, which is defined as the income earned per individual in an area in a specified time period. It is also called as average income. So option A, per capita income, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to the next one. The per capita income of India is dash dollars PPP, or purchasing power parity. The per capita income of India is A, $5,000, B, $6,000, C, $6,500, or D $7,500. So here the correct answer is option C, $6500 PPP or purchasing power parity is the per capita income of India. So option C is the correct answer to this question. Let us now move to the next one. Dash is the sum of total market value of goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time, usually 1 year. What is defined as the sum total of market value of goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time, usually 1 calendar year or 1 financial year? Whether it is A, national income, B, per capita income, C, personal income, or D, none of the above. So here we have seen already the concept of per capita income. It was the average income. Here we are looking at the sum total of market value of goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time. It is nothing but national income. So national income is the sum total of market value of goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time, usually 1 year. Let us now move to the next one. The gross national income or GNI per capita, gross national income per capita of India is dollar dash, whether it is A, $1900, B, $2900, C, $3900, or $4900, option D. So here the gross national income per capita of India is option A, $1900. So option A is the correct answer to this particular question, which talked about the gross national income per capita. Please give attention to this word, per capita. Let us now move to the next one. The World Bank uses dash method to calculate the gross national income per capita. Which method is used by the World Bank to calculate the GNI per capita? Whether it is A, Atlas method, B, compass method, C, squaring method, or D, division method. Here again a very factual sort of a question. All these questions were associated with facts or the current happenings. So here only one, the national income thing, was a definition sort of a thing. But anyways, the World Bank uses Atlas method to calculate the gross national income per capita for all the countries in the world. So option A, Atlas method, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 9. The rank of India according to World Bank GNI per capita estimates is dash in the world. The rank of India according to World Bank's GNI per capita estimates is A, 123, B, 133, C, 143, or D, 153. Again a factual sort of a question. The rank of India according to World Bank gross national income per capita estimates is 143 in the world. So option C, 143, is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important question. Let us now move to the next one. Dash sector employs the largest population in India. Which sector employs the largest population in India? And the underlying options are A, primary sector or agricultural sector, B, secondary sector or manufacturing sector or industrial sector, whatever you can call it, C is tertiary sector or service sector, and D, none of the above. So here dash sector employs the largest population in India. It is primary sector or agricultural sector which employs the largest population in India. So option A, primary sector, is the correct answer to this particular question. It employs around 60% of the Indian population. Let us now move to the next one. What is the contribution of agriculture to India's gross domestic product or GDP? What is the contribution of agriculture, or alternatively they can ask what is the contribution of primary sector to India's GDP? And the underlying options are A, 18%, B, 55%, C, 27%, and D, none of the above. So here the correct answer is, in spite of employing the largest share of population, agriculture still continues to contribute around only 18% towards the gross domestic product of India, and therefore option A, 18%, is the correct answer to this particular question. 27% is coming from the industrial sector, and 55%, which is the largest, is coming from tertiary sector or service sector. So these are the sectoral classifications of contribution towards GDP. So agriculture is the lowest at 18%. Then we have industry or industrial sector or manufacturing sector or secondary sector 27%, and then we have tertiary sector or service sector at 55%. So Let us now move to the next one now. Which of the following sector contributes the most towards India's GDP? Just now I have told you 55% is contributed by the service sector or tertiary sector. So option A is primary sector, B is secondary sector, C is tertiary, and D is none of the above. So here the most contribution towards GDP is coming from the tertiary sector or service sector. So option C is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important question with respect to contribution or sectoral contribution towards GDP. Let us now move to the next one. Which of the following is a part of service sector? Which of the following is a part of service sector? And the underlying options are A, agriculture, B, manufacturing, C, transportation, D, none of the above. So here which of the following is a part of service sector? Agriculture is not, because it is a part of primary sector. Manufacturing cannot be because it is a part of industrial or secondary sector. It is transportation, communication, healthcare, banking, insurance. All these are services, and therefore it comes under service sector, or it forms the part of service sector. That is why option C, transportation, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope the idea of service sector is pretty much clear, or tertiary sector. Let us now move to question number 14. The question is, dash industry is the largest in India. Which industry is the largest in India? Whether it is A, fertilizers industry, B, textiles industry, C, oil industry, or D, none of the above. So here again a factual sort of a question, but it is option B, textiles is the largest industry in India, and therefore option B, textiles, is the correct answer to this question. Let us now move to the next one. Which of the following is true with respect to agriculture in India? What is true with respect to agriculture in India? And the underlying options are A, helps in raising standard of living of rural masses, B, important contributor to exports, C, it is the backbone of Indian economy, and D, all of the above. So here option A, helps in raising standard of living of rural masses, yes, because it is employing the largest number of individuals from rural areas. So yes, it is helping in raising the standard of living of rural masses. Be important contributor towards exports, yes indeed it is an important contributor towards exports of primary goods, to be very precise. See, it is the backbone of Indian economy, yeah it is indeed the backbone of Indian economy, and option D, all of the above. So here which of the following is true with respect to agriculture in India? All of these three things mentioned above are true with respect to agriculture in India, and therefore option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this question. Let us now move to the next one. Which of the following is not a role of agriculture in India? A not sort of a question. Which of the following is not a role of agriculture in India? And the underlying options are A, it has a share in national income, B, it creates unemployment, C, provides raw materials to industries, D, it also provides food. So here which of the following is not a role of agriculture? Rather option B is not, because it creates unemployment. It does not create unemployment, it rather creates employment. So option B, creates unemployment, is incorrect, and therefore that is not a role of agriculture in India, it rather creates employment. So option B is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important to highlight what is required. So here it is specifically asking what is not a role of agriculture in India. So please pay attention to certain words, not, what is true, what is incorrect, what is correct, and things like that. Anyways, let us now move to the next one. Which of the following denotes the constraints on Indian agriculture? Constraints on Indian agriculture. Option A, small size of land holdings, B, indebtedness, C, old methods of irrigation, and D, all of the above. So which of the following denotes the constraints on Indian agriculture? All these points are in a sense constraints on Indian agriculture, because the small size of land holding is really difficult to cultivate, rural indebtedness is there, old methods of irrigation are there. So therefore option D, all of the above, are constraints on Indian agriculture. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 18, which is again a similar sort of question. Which of the following denotes the constraints on Indian agriculture? And the underlying options are A, lack of agricultural marketing, very important thing, B, no scientific method of cultivation, C, dependence on monsoon, and D, all of the above. So here again constraints on agriculture or Indian agriculture are denoted by points A, B, and C. That means lack of agricultural marketing. Even though you are producing good quality products, because of lack of marketing, the fair prices which the farmer should get, he or she is not fetching that. B is no scientific methods of cultivation, so they are all using this old method or outdated methods of cultivation, and then dependence on monsoon because of poor irrigation facilities. So here option D, all of the above, is the correct answer. So question number 17 and 18 has given us 6 important constraints on Indian agriculture, and they are: A, small size of land holdings; B, indebtedness or rural indebtedness; C, old methods of irrigation; D, lack of agricultural marketing; E, no scientific methods of cultivation; and F, dependence on monsoon. So these were 6 important constraints on Indian agriculture. Let us now move to question number 19. The causes of rural indebtedness are highlighted by dash points. The causes of rural indebtedness are what? So let us look at the underlying options. A, informal credit at high rates of interest. That means the credit is being taken from money lenders, brokers, traders, relatives at a very high rate of interest. Then we have ancestral debt. That means the debt which was, or the loan which was taken by father, has to be paid by the son, and that is why it is going on, and it takes the rural mass into a spiral sort of a thing. Then we have increasing cost of agricultural inputs. That means the cost of cultivation has drastically gone up in terms of prices of fertilizers, in terms of seeds, in terms of labor, and all these things. And option D, all of the above. So what can be the possible causes of rural indebtedness? All of these 3 points are in a sense talking about the causes of rural indebtedness. That means informal credit at very high rates of interest, ancestral debts are there, increasing cost of agricultural inputs, and therefore option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 20. Which of the following can help to solve the problem of rural indebtedness in India? Now we have seen what can be the possible causes of rural indebtedness, but what can be the possible solution to the problem of rural indebtedness in India? Let us look at the underlying options. The first is checks and controls over money lenders. That means the money lenders shouldn't charge very high rates of interest. That checks and balances should be there, and control should be there on money lenders, or altogether on the informal side of credit. B, encourage savings. That means we should encourage the rural masses to save more. Third is reduce unproductive loans. That means take loans only for productive purposes. Do not take it for example, say marriage or any other family functions and things like that. And the last is all of the above. That means checks and controls over money lenders, encouragement of savings, as well as reducing the unproductive loans. So again, here what can be the possible solutions? All of these are possible solutions to the problem of rural indebtedness in India. That is checks and controls over money lenders, encouragement of savings, and also reducing unproductive loans and unproductive spendings. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 21. Dash consists of all the processes that are needed to be carried out of the farm produce from production to selling it to the consumer. That means all the processes that are needed to be carried out from the farm, from production to selling it to the consumers. What do you call such a thing? Whether it is A, agricultural marketing; B, agricultural development; C, agricultural finance; or D, all of the above. So here the processes that are needed to be carried out of the farm produce from production to selling it to the consumers is called as agricultural marketing, and option A, agricultural marketing, is the correct answer to this question. Very important aspect. Let us now move to the next one. Agricultural marketing consists of dash. It consists of A, wholesale markets only; B, it consists of retail markets only; C, it consists of both wholesale and retail markets; and D, none of the above. So here agricultural markets or agricultural marketing consists of both these types of markets, that is wholesale as well as retail markets. So option C, wholesale and retail, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to the next one. Which of the following denotes the defects in agricultural marketing in India? And the underlying options are A, poor transportation; B, chain of middlemen; C, adulteration; and D, all of the above. Which of the following denotes the defects in agricultural marketing in India. So the underlying options are poor transportation, chain of middlemen, adulteration, and all of the above. So here again option D, all of the above, is correct with respect to the defects in agricultural marketing in India. That means there is a long chain of middlemen, poor transportation and storage facilities, as well as there is adulteration with respect to good quality products, and therefore option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. The next one is the measures to improve agricultural marketing includes dash. What can be the possible measures to improve agricultural marketing in India? And the underlying options are A, establishment of regulated market, B, improvement in finance, C, standard weights and grading system, and D, all of the above. The measures to improve agricultural marketing in India includes all of the above things, that is establishment of a regulated market, improvement in credit or finance, and also standard weights and grading system. So here option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. Very important question with respect to agricultural price policy or price policy in general. The question is, which of the following denotes the role of agricultural price policy? The role of agricultural price policy. And the underlying options are A, rational pricing, B, correction of imperfections in the pricing, C, provides indication of preferences, and D, all of the above. So which of the following denotes the role of agricultural price policy? All of these denotes the role of agricultural price policy. That means it is in relation to correcting the imperfections, providing an indication of preferences, and also a rational sort of pricing. So here option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 26. Agricultural price policy should be such that it ensures a dash. Agricultural price policy should be such that it ensures what? And the underlying options are A, it ensures optimum cropping patterns, B, adequate remuneration to farmers, C, reasonable prices for goods, and D, all of the above. Agricultural price policy should be such that it ensures option D, all of the above. That means optimum cropping pattern, adequate remuneration to the farmers, and reasonable prices for goods. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer. I am giving you questions which have all of the above as the answers because it in a sense covers things very comprehensively. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why we are taking such questions which have all of the above as the correct answer. Anyways, let us now move to 27th. 27th is the function of agricultural price policy can be categorized into dash. The functions of agricultural price policy can be categorized into dash, and the underlying options are A, allocative functions wherein using of resources should be as per the market signals, B, encourage investment in agriculture, C, short term functions like creating certainty in price of different crops, and D, all of the above. So here the functions of agricultural policy can be categorized into all of these three things, that is the allocative functions which help us to understand the usage of resources as per the market signals, encouragement in investment or encouragement of investment in agriculture, and also some short term functions like creating certainty in prices of different crops. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. What is the long form of MSP? MSP, and the underlying options are A, maximum support price, B, minimum support price, C, major saving problem, or D, none of the above. So here a very important sort of thing in terms of agricultural economics is MSP or minimum support price. So option B, minimum support price, is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important concept. Let us now move to the next one. Dash crops are currently covered under MSP in India, that is minimum support price scheme in India. Which crops are covered, or how many crops rather are covered? So the underlying options are A, 20, B, 21, C, 22, and D, 23. So here option D, 23 crops are currently covered under MSP, is the correct answer to this particular question. So option D, 23, is the correct answer. Very important questions, question number 28 and question number 29. Also 30 and 31 is 31, 32. All these 5 questions are really very important. So please pay attention rather. Okay, let us now move to question number 30. Dash recommends the MSP of crops in India, or the minimum support price of crops in India. Who recommends it? And the underlying options are A, Ministry of Agriculture, B, Commission of Agricultural Cost and Pricing or Prices, CACP, then C, Union Finance Minister, and D, Commission on MSP in India. So here the correct answer is CACP, or Commission of Agricultural Costs and Prices recommends the MSP of crops in India. Therefore, option B, CACP, or Commission of Agricultural Costs and Prices, is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important question. Let us now move to the next one. Fair and remunerative prices, popularly called as FRPs, are given for dash crop. FRP is given for which crop? Underlying options are A, sugarcane, B, oil seeds, C, maize, and D, none of the above. So here the correct answer is FRP, or fair and remunerative prices, are given for option A, sugarcane. So in terms of MSP, if you look at MSP, it is given to 23 crops, but when you give MSP for, or the support price for sugarcane, it is not called as MSP, it is called as FRP, or fair and remunerative prices. So option A, sugarcane, is the crop which gets FRP, or fair and remunerative prices. Very important question. Let us now move to question number 32. Dash committee recommended the formula for calculating MSP. Now there is a new formula for calculating MSP, which is 1.5 times the cost of production. So which committee recommended this formula? Whether it is A, Swaminathan committee, B, Bimal Jalan committee, C, Suresh Tendulkar committee, or D, Vijay Kelkar committee. So here the committee which recommended the formula for calculating minimum support price, or MSP, is option A, Swaminathan committee. So option A, Swaminathan committee, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to question number 33. The question is dash is a process in which a society transforms itself from a primary agricultural society into one based on manufacturing of goods and services. There is a transformation which is happening from primary agricultural society into one based on manufacturing of goods and services. And what do you call that process? The process is called as what? Wherein a society is transforming itself from a primary agricultural society into a society based on manufacturing of goods and services, whether it is A, agriculture, whether it is B, industrialization, whether it is C, service, or D, none of the above. So here the process is termed as industrialization. So option B, industrialization, is a process in which society transforms itself from a primary agricultural society into one based on manufacturing of goods and services. So option B, industrialization, is the correct answer to this particular question. Very important aspect or definition in terms of industrialization, or the process of transformation of societies, to be very precise. Let us now move to the next one. Industrialization can dash. It can A, stimulate growth, B, it can provide employment, C, it can raise per capita income, D, all of the above. So here again option D, all of the above, is the correct answer, because industrialization can stimulate growth, it can provide employment, and it can also effectively raise the per capita income of a society. So option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to question number 34. Let us now move to question number 35. Industrialization plays an important role in economic development because of dash. Industrialization plays an important role in economic development because of what? And the underlying options are because A, it contributes to national income, B, it contributes to employment, C, it contributes to trade, and D, all of the above. So industrialization plays an important role in economic development because of all these three reasons, that is its contribution towards national income, employment, as well as trade, and therefore option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 36. The process of industrialization helps in dash. The process of industrialization helps in what? And the underlying options are A, division of labor, B, optimum utilization of available resources, C, development of primary sector, and D, all of the above. So here the process of industrialization is helping us in division of labor and hence specialization, and it also helps in optimum utilization of resources as well as the development of primary sector, because all the raw materials are absorbed by industrial units, and therefore the process of industrialization, which is movement from primary agricultural based society towards a manufacturing one, is in a sense also helping the primary sector, as the raw materials from the primary sector are absorbed by the industries or manufacturers. So, here again the process of industrialization helps in all of the above, that is division of labor leading to specialization, optimum utilization and allocation of resources, as well as development of primary or agricultural sector. So, option D is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. Dash is defined as the efforts taken by government to alter industrial structure to promote productivity based growth. What is defined as the efforts taken by the government to alter the industrial structure of a country so as to promote the productivity based growth? Whether it is A, industrial output is defined as that, whether it is B, industrial policy, which is defined as the efforts taken by the government to alter industrial structure to promote productivity based growth, whether it is C, industrial categories, or D, industrial disputes. So, here option B, industrial policy, is the correct answer. That means industrial policy is defined as the efforts taken by the governments to alter industrial structures to promote productivity based growth. So, option B, industrial policy, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to question number 38. An industrial policy is a comprehensive statement of the government and covers dash. So, an industrial policy is a comprehensive statement of government and it covers what? And the underlying options are A, it covers procedures, B, it covers principles, C, it covers policies, and D, all of the above. So, here an industrial policy is a comprehensive statement of the government and it covers procedures, principles as well as policies, and therefore option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. I hope that is clear. Let us now move to question number 39. Industrial policy ensures dash. Industrial policy ensures what? And the underlying options are A, flow of limited resources to desirable areas of investment, B, helps state in regulating and controlling the expansion of industries, C, demarcates the area of economic activity, that means which industry should be operating in that public sphere, in private sphere, and also in joint sphere, that is public private partnership sphere, and also option D, all of the above. That means flow of limited resources to desirable areas of investment, helping state in regulating and controlling expansion of industries, and demarcating the areas of operation or economic activity, meaning thereby public, private and joint entities. So, here again industrial policy ensures in all of the above. So, therefore, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to question number 40. After independence, India had set up dash industrial policies. Here I am looking at after independence. So, after independence, India had set up dash industrial policies. Options are A1, B2, C3 and D4. So, after independence, India had set up 4 industrial policies. So, option D4 is the correct answer. That means in 1948, 1956, 1977 and 1991. So, these are industrial policies set up by India after independence. I hope this question is pretty much. Let us now move to the next one. The industrial policy 1991 is also called as dash, and the underlying options are A, new industrial policy, B, new socio-economic policy, C, new commercial policy and D, original economic policy. So, we have seen that post independence India had set up 4 industrial policies and they were in the year 1948, 1956, 1977 and 1991, and this question is specifically about policy which was passed in the year 1991 and what is the alternate name for the industrial policy 1991. And here out of the underlying options, option A, new industrial policy, is the correct answer to this particular question. So, option A is the correct answer to this question. Let us now move to the next one, very important question. The main objectives of industrial policy 1991 are dash. The main objectives of industrial policy 1991 are option A, encourage entrepreneurship, B, dismantle regulatory framework, C, accept LPG, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization, and D, all of the above. So, here the main objectives of industrial policy 1991 are denoted by points A, B and C. That means encouragement of entrepreneurship, dismantling the strong regulatory framework, and also accepting liberalization, privatization and globalization. So, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. The new industrial policy undertook important regulations which include dash. The new industrial policy undertook important regulations which include A, abolishing licensing system, B, encouragement of foreign direct investment, C, promotion of small and medium enterprise, and D, all of the above. So, here the new industrial policy undertook important regulations in the form of abolishing licensing mechanism, encouragement of foreign direct investment, and promotion of small and medium enterprise, or MSME, micro, small, medium enterprise. So, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this question. Let us now move to the next one. The next question is, which of the following denotes the criticisms of industrial policy 1991 or the limitations of industrial policy 1991 or new industrial policy 1991? And the underlying options are A, reduce importance of public sector, B, foreign investment can't strike the balance between growth and development as envisaged by the policy, C, new MRTP suggests that decentralization of wealth is not possible, and D, all of the above. So, which of the following denotes the criticisms of industrial policy 1991? All of these points, that is, reduce importance of public sector, foreign investment cannot strike balance between growth and development, and the new MRTP or monopolies and restrictive trade practice suggests that decentralization of wealth not possible. So, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now look at the next question. Which of the following suggests the role of SMEs in India, small medium enterprises in India? A, contributes 45% of manufacturing output, B, contributes 40% of India's exports, C, generates employment, and D, all of the above. So, which of the following suggests the role of SMEs? All of these, that is, it is contributing towards 45% of the manufacturing output, 40% of India's exports, and generates employment on a very large scale. So, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer to this particular question. Let us now move to the next one. The challenges faced by SMEs includes dash. What are the challenges faced by small and medium enterprises in India? And the underlying options are challenges in association to finance or credit, challenges with respect to technology, challenges with respect to skilled manpower, and option D, all of the above. So, here the challenges faced by SMEs includes all of these three things, that is, challenges with respect to finance, technology, as well as skilled manpower or workforce. So, option D, all of the above, is the correct answer. Let us now move to the last 47 is the new and composite criteria for classification of MSME in India is given below. So, this is the composite criteria which is given to us. So, classification micro, small and medium, these are the columns, and then we have in the row manufacturing and service sector together. So, the investment is less than 1 crore and turnover is less than 5 crore, investment is less than 10 crores and turnover is less than 50 crores rather, then investment for medium is 20 crores and turnover is less than 100 crores. So, select the correct answer. So, micro is investment rupees 2 crores and turnover rupees 4 crores. Then we have none of the above are correct. Third is micro investment. For micro industries, investment is 5 crores and turnover is 10 crore. So, here which is given is incorrect, that it means that, and then last is all of the above are true. So, the new and composite criteria for classification of MSME in India is true with respect to what is given to us. That means micro investment is less than 1 crores and turnover less than 5 crores, investment less than 10 crores for small and turnover less than 50 crores, and for medium investment less than 20 crore and turnover less than 100 crore in both classification, that is both classifications, manufacturing as well as service sector classifications. So, I hope the questions with respect to Indian and global economic development are pretty much clear. In this class we have covered all the 4 chapters. In the next I will give you another 50 odd questions which will help you practice the questions in this MCQ format for your exam. So, please stay tuned for more. Thank you.